Do you remember this phone? Because if you look at coverage of the S24 series, you'll find the Ultra everywhere and little on the Plus and base Galaxy S24, the last of a dying breed. It's understandable, with the Ultra being the best, most expensive phone in the lineup, but if you take a look at the normal S24, you can see it has the potential to become one of the most underrated phones of 2024. This is why. When it comes to the design of the S24, it's pretty much identical to the one that came before it, the S23. It's the second year Samsung has used this design language, and it's just been adjusted slightly to differentiate it from last year. So that includes the flash that has moved down slightly, not that it makes a difference by any means, a newly designed speaker. At a glance, you probably won't notice these changes, as the S24 has the same camera layout as last year, the same frosted glass back as last year. But what you will notice is how this phone feels, because the sides are now flat, which gives the S24 a much more boxy feel in the hand. And pair that with how light this phone is, it is genuinely so good to use this phone one-handed. They are also not glossy this time round, so it shouldn't become a fingerprint mess or collect scratches easily. One gripe I have is just too iPhone-y, like identical to the iPhone. To further differentiate the S24 from the S23 are the new set of colours. So we have Onyx Black, Cobalt Violet, Amber Yellow, and Marble Grey. I'd say they're decent colours. They are fairly muted as far as colours go, but they suit the aesthetic of the phone and they complement the way it looks. If you want something more fun, the Samsung exclusive colours, Sandstone Orange, Jade Green, and arguably the best S24 colour, Sapphire Blue, are the way to go. Samsung hasn't skimped on how this phone is built either. On the back and front, the Galaxy S24 is protected by Gorilla Glass Victus 2, a slight step down from the Gorilla Armor on the S24 Ultra. The rails are still aluminium, which contributes to how lightweight this phone is. Titanium is still reserved for the Ultra, but you're getting a flagship level build here too. That makes this phone so much more premium. And the Galaxy S24 doesn't disappoint when it comes to its display. It's a full HD display that looks amazing. Colors aren't as punchy as before, but they're a lot more natural, which helps the phone to be more color accurate than before. Watching content on here looks great with HDR support, plenty of contrast, good viewing angles, and it is still immersive enough on a smaller display. Speaking of the display size, the display has gotten slightly bigger at 6.2 inches thanks to thinner and symmetrical bezels, which makes the phone look neater and more aesthetically pleasing as a whole. This phone is an absolute pleasure to use one-handed, which we're seeing less of. Compact, one-handable flagship phones. It's still an adaptive 120Hz screen, except it can lower all the way down to 1Hz instead of 48 from last year's S23. So it should be more efficient and save a bit more battery when the screen is idle. It's the only model that hasn't had some sort of resolution upgrade, as the S24 Plus has now got a Quad HD display to match with the S24 Ultra. It's not that big of a deal considering it's a compact phone. Everything is still sharp thanks to the 416 ppi, and having Quad HD anyways would probably ruin the battery, so it's not a massive deal breaker. What has been upgraded though is the brightness. The S24 can reach 2600 nits max brightness, making this phone easy to view and use in bright outdoor conditions. It's a shame that the display doesn't get the anti-reflective properties from the S24 Ultra, because this is Gorilla Glass Victus 2, as it has been a game changer over on the Ultra. A game changer for this phone though are the benefits this compact size give. The S24 is easy to slip in and out of pockets. Its lightweight makes it comfortable to use and not tiring one-handed compared to the heavy monoliths we're used to seeing. But surely that comes at the cost of battery life, right? Well, actually, not really. The Galaxy S24 is rocking a 4000 mAh battery, and the battery life is good for this size. You can expect to average a day with 6 to 7 hours of screen on time with regular usage, and when it's time to top up that battery, you can expect the S24 to charge at 25 watts maximum. This is the only model that is still charging at just 25 watts, as the S24 Plus and Ultra can charge much faster at 45 watts. Although that slower charging speed means the S24 will be able to last longer in the long term, something that's needed for the phone to last 7 years? That's right, the Galaxy S24 is promised to receive 7 years of major OS and security updates, taking this phone all the way up to 2031. Now, I don't know how well performance and battery life will hold up with the number of software updates it will receive, but it's good that this phone is covered for the long term. Currently, the S24 is running One UI 6.1 based on Android 14. The One UI 6.1 the Galaxy S24 devices run have features that older Galaxy devices don't, such as the wallpaper always on display. It's not a big deal as it will drain slightly more battery, but it's something different on the Android side, which is nice to have. The speakers on the Galaxy S24 are decent too, although the screen isn't laminated, which basically means there's a gap between the actual screen and the glass. But this is something that shouldn't affect using the iPad, nor is it something you'll notice unless you're really... They get loud, but they lack a bit of bass, but they're acceptable for this size. They're more than good enough for everyday listening and are strong in clarity too. What's also good are the S24's cameras. As for the hardware, it is exactly the same as the S23, with a 50 megapixel main, 12 megapixel ultra wide and a 10 megapixel 3x telephoto. With the main lens, I can say the S24 can produce some good looking photos. They are plenty sharp with better dynamic range than before in darker areas of the image. Colors are vibrant, but they're not too oversaturated to give them a more true to life look. As for the ultra wide and the telephoto, well, they've hardly been improved. Shots taken with both are identical to the S23, which leads to switching between each lens inconsistent, making the quality jump between these lenses to the main lens much more greater, and it leads to the ultra-wide and telephoto being much weaker as a result. Video is good for the most part. The S24 can record up to 8K 30, and in good lighting or during the day, the video quality looks good. However, when you get into lower light, you can see it struggle with the exposure and how noisy certain parts of the video can become. But I wouldn't complain too much. They're a good set of cameras that deliver satisfying results. But perhaps the thing that overshadows the S24's launch is the whole Galaxy AI. I won't go in depth through all of them, but I will show you the 3 that I think are the best and most useful. That starts with Circle to Search. Honestly, this has been the most convenient way to search for things, and I think it's the one that most people will actually use. It gives the results pretty quickly and the accuracy makes it reliable to use. Then the photo editing tools can be helpful to fix an image or just play around with, which is what I mostly use it for. You can reposition and delete aspects of an image and AI will fill in the blanks. Then there's instant slow-mo. This has to be impressive in how it works. AI adds artificially generated frames on any video, and they don't have to be filmed on this phone. They can be from anywhere. However, features such as live translate, whilst it's cool, it probably won't be used due to how inconsistent it can be, and the web page summarization is restricted to just Samsung's browser. And how many people actually use that? It's time to talk about the performance. And this is where it gets a tad controversial. You see, Samsung has brought back the Exynos chipset for certain markets. So in places such as the US and China, the S24 will have the latest Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chip, whereas in regions like Europe, you get the Exynos 2400. We've seen the reputation the Exynos processor has, as it's usually inferior to its Snapdragon counterparts and tends to overheat more often with significantly worse battery life. However, this time, the gap in performance is not so huge. The S24 I'm using is the Exynos variant, and I can say that performance is actually very good. Using the phone feels quick and I've rarely had any major lag whatsoever. The phone performs well in gaming too, and it rarely overheats except from the initial setup process. It will never be as good as its Snapdragon counterpart, but the fact that the gap in performance has been closed makes me confident that this time the processor difference should not influence your buying decision. The S24 is a neat little package that delivers on pretty much everything it needs to. It's a safe bet of a phone that isn't exciting by any means, but it certainly isn't boring either. It has personality. Oh yeah, this is always going to be in the shadow of the S24 Ultra, whether we like it or not. But despite all of that, it's the one that I actually recommend for most people, especially because of the price. It's a whole $500 difference between this and the Ultra, and $200 for the Plus. And the S24 is on sale quite frequently, making it a tempting buy due to how low the prices can go, especially for a flagship phone. You're getting most of the magic from the S24 Ultra in a smaller form factor, a rare sight these days, which truly makes this phone criminally undervalued and underrated. Thanks for watching, and I guess I'll catch you in the next one. See you there.